So, hi everybody and welcome back. This is C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 76 and we continue with our solution. And we stopped in the last video at this place where I could write a username, and then we had a problem that the password popped up late and we could not write anything. And the reason is very simple. We have just to copy this line of code, which means write sysdlc in and ask here to type in the, not the username, because we already have the username. Now we want the password. And actually that's it. But there was one more problem. The space here is a little bit too much. One new line is here enough, or we can see if we need both. Let's check without and then see if we can. But now we can see how this looks like and if we like it or not. Let's continue. I started this one. I thought so. Was not the case. And then coder. And yeah, here we have shifted a little bit, but you see it works anyhow. And then I write, for example, password 1 2 3 4 5 6. Absolutely amazing password. I think this is one of the famous password of all time and the worst at the same time as well. But yeah, we have it. And here we make some space. So, and we see this one. Let's align this perhaps a little bit at this line. Now I know this one is okay. So, and till now I made not much. I just called saved variables and that's it. But actually with that we have finished our yes, account start. And now we go to the, yes, let's say to make some more work, and let's see what it's asking here. Here it says compare the input with a database stored account to permit access. So which means we have to create databases and then we have to compare them. And I have listed here all these comments are aiming for this task here, because this is a subtask and this task are one way to achieve that. And let's try this one. Let's see what I wrote there. Sort database contains two arrays with the same length. Okay, I make two databases with the same length. Okay. Then compare the username variable with the database names which are stored in arrays. Okay, so I have to compare the username variable with the database name. So I create a database names with names or something, and then I will compare them. If succeed, note the number, and so on. Okay, this is so give me already a fairly info what I'm going to do. So I have to create two arrays, one with names and one with probably password. They have the same length, and let's do this. And arrays and databases are similar to variables, which means we have to put them again on top. Again, I use again in this case this local scope of int main, not the global scope here on top. But I have to go on top and write it here as well on the top, so I know when I look at databases or something, any variables I want to find here on top. So let's create this. How we create an array with names, which we will later compare. For example, I will write coder, and this coder should be in my array database. Let's create. How we create an array again? We write, first of all, we have to decide what kind of type the array should be. Type means what we are allowed to store in this array. And I say, okay, it should be names. So we have not a choice. We compare later names. So I need a string database, string array with names. So sometimes we can choose, but in this case we can't choose. So I say std. Of course, don't forget, you still can change types and all things what you want for your needs. But in this case, I just use a string database with array, a string array, and I call it name account a little bit descriptive. The variable name should be very descriptive, which means if you need to read the variable, it should be fairly already clear and you should not encrypt it. And that's why names would be very bad. For example, if I would write here names, this is too general. We have to say here account names, account name, and then database, something like that. Account name database. Names, perhaps plurals, account names database. For example, now it's absolutely clear when you read this later anywhere, you know exactly alone from reading this variable name, okay, I know what it is, I can go on and concentrate on my task. I don't need to encrypt this variable name, perfect. And let's create this. And we learned about arrays. We can use this two ways. The one way with arrays was this one, that you don't write here a number, but then you have to assign all the values in, which means I can do this one. So this is probably the easy way. And let's write the numbers here. For example, what are the names which I want to write? For example, let's write Coda. I use them all the time. Superman, Wonder Woman, not Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, and here Maggie. And let's make it not too long, perhaps. And this is a short database. I make it very short, and I say that's absolute perfect. And you see here many red cribbles. This is an indicator that I made something wrong. So what I made wrong here, if we can check this, try to understand a little bit error handling, and it says here error type, but perhaps we should start this and see the complaint. So let's learn a little bit about errors, because that's a very important part of programming as well, that we can handle this error messages. It looks bad, but it's very important. And it says here, for example, identifier Wonder Woman is undefined. Okay, they are not defined. This is one thing. And then Wonder Woman undeclared identifier, so it has to do something with an identifier. And then if you have, for example, an error like this and you don't know what, then you got just what you have to do is just go to the web or to a C++ book or anything and just watch again how to create an array, for example. And or you can ask, if it's a little bit more specific, what is this error? You can just copy this kind of error or write it in the search engine, and there will probably pop up something and you find it. In our case, it's very simple, so for that error you don't need it. And the reason what the problem here is, you should see this meanwhile very easy. We have here a string, and a string array needs still quotation marks, right? So we have to use these quotation marks, and of course I forget them. And let's do this. And after we use now this quotation marks, it should work all. And good that I made the list not too long. Now I don't write too much quotation mark. So, but you still see here some errors, but don't be fooled by that, because this one is now not error. To check it again, you can start this instantly and you see, okay, it starts, and then you can check here perhaps one more time. Okay, there is exit code 0 means here all is fine. All right, we can go on. We created here one database, account names database, and what I need more is a second database for the passwords. And important was here, let's create a second database, and the passwords, let's make it not we can think if we want make string or numbers. Actually we can't think, because I have defined this passwords here, the passwords as a string. So I should use the password also as a string. So let's make here also std a string, and this time I count a password database and again an array. And important is here again use the same length of the array. We have here 4 elements, so let's make the same here. And the reason for that is because we know only an array till now, because we have not learned other structures, or let's say another form of array, which for example an vector or something like that, or a map or list or something, anything like other, which can handle different length and sizes, where we can add easy something new. And if we make them the same length, we can just logically think they are connected. What I mean with that is I will show you in a moment. And let's write here random passwords. And I write here the password 123 all time. I'm really lazy. 1 2 3 5 6. Of course, this one is not an ideal form, and let's write here the other way around. 2 3 4 5 6 1, and here 3 4 5 6 1 2, and here I have 3 4 5 6 1 2 3, and that's it. So I have now here passwords and of course a semicolon here at the end, and I have again this red gribbles. What is the problem now? The problem now is, okay, we learned strings needs of course quotation marks, but hey, wait a minute, these are numbers. Why we need here quotation marks? Numbers don't need quotation marks, right? Careful, these are numbers, but you have declared that this array is accepting only strings, and these strings to treat as, no, these numbers to treat as strings, we have to use again the quotation marks, which I had before. So careful about that, that you get not irritated. If it says string, they must be strings, and these are, they look like numbers, they are numbers, but they are treated, the type is treated as string. That's very important. And now we have created this one. So let's repeat here one more thing about arrays. The other way was, of course, you could write here the number of slots, but if you do so, I mean the number of elements, not slots. You could write also here 1 2 4 elements here, and later you can call them. But let's continue. Now we have repeat arrays a little bit and see what we have, and we have put it on top, but still in a local scope of int main. And let's go on. We have made what? Stored database contain 2 arrays with the same length. Okay, we did this on top. Let's go on. Compare the username variable with the database name, which are stored in arrays. So now what we have to do is just what we stored, and we stored it here, username, in here. And now I have just to compare, and if I find it, then I have to say, okay, I found it, and use this slot name, not the slot name, the slot number, to later check also the password, if the password is same with this, the password with the slot later. But let me show this one. This is a little bit more complicated. I hope you found perhaps a better solution, but this one is a very simple solution, I think, and that's why I took it. So let's continue. What I'm going to do is first, let's compare. And how we compare, we have different ways to compare. One way is, for example, and that works all time, is an if statement. Our if statement is the perfect candidate for compares, but we know also that an if statement, for example, is, let's say, we can change an if statement to a switch statement, and so you can decide, makes it here sense to use a switch or a if. And because this one is an exercise where we train all, we will do one with switch and one array with switch and one with if. So I will use both styles. All right, let's start. So the first one I will try to with a switch. So what we need for a switch is the switch keyword, and here I will write the the condition. And in what is the condition here in our case? But before we go on, let's finish the structure of our switch. So what we need is here, we open up here the curly braces, and between this we will write cases, and then we will write perhaps a default value and so on. So just for case, and then yeah, I think we should now define the condition, because depends on the condition we will do some right here a case. So let's see what's the switch, what condition we have. The condition is here defined as, and we have now read what we have to do. It says you compare the username variable, which means I can use here the condition username, and it's a comparison. So the case it's, and the switch, how the switch works is we take the switch here, and if the username is this one, we can say found. If it's this one the case, we found, or something like so on. So we can check all cases. If one of the names is the username, then we found it. If it's not the case, then we go to the default and say not in this, not contains not username or something like that. And how we make this, so let's do it. I already told you, we just write here the username as a condition. Username, this is our variable name, which is now saved at this point on top, because here we put it in, it is saved here on top, and we have access at this point to it. And we have a problem. Local represented string name input can be wrong like numbers. Take check. I'm not sure what it wants. Let's see. What we are going to use is here. Let's continue. I'm not sure what's. As the string username input can be wrong like numbers. Take check. No. Expression must have enumeration type. Okay. So what were wrong? What the mistake I did here? I use a switch, and this username is a string. And what's the problem with that? Here, string array, not a string array actually. What's the problem with that? It says arrow, it must be an integral or enum type. So we have a problem here, right? That's we have many options to solve this. For example, okay, then don't use a switch. That's probably the easiest solution. Just use a if statement. But I said, wait a minute, a switch is similar to a if. Why I can't use here a switch statement? And because I want not think too much and try to solve this here, let's start with a if, and later we change this to a switch in the second place. Because don't make too complicated things. Just think for yourself. If you say I have enough time, then think about complicated things. If you say I have no time, just use something simple. I use now the if statement instead of the switch statement, and I say here if. And then I say the username, which I want compare, username, just a name. And now how I compare it with an array element, we learned this as well. We make here an equal sign, was this double. So this one is an equal sign, and I just take the slot. And important, array starts all time with slot 0, not 1. So I have to write account names database, and then this one, and I copy just this one here. It's very easy. I copy this one, and then I have to check them one by one, right? So I write here account name database and the slot 1. And if this is the case, I can say, for example, just for test purposes, but before, let's make a curly braces. And of course you can use here also not the curly braces, the shortcut, but we use the curly braces to see the local and scope place. For example, we created here a new scope. This is the new scope for the if statement, and I write here, for example, std cout found, just for test, and later I change this here a little bit more accordingly to the task. But right now I say found, cout and found. found something. Very good. And let's continue. And because this one is now, I have just to do this one with all, right? And we are lucky we have only 4, which means we can check this very easy with copy paste. This is not the best solution, but because it's less, you can do this. Think about this would be around 1000 elements, then this solution is probably the worst which you can make. But in this case, I say, come on, for solutions, I use this one, and I have this one. And here, but here is one more if statement, because this is, if this is true, if this is true, if this is true, if this is true, and then I need to check actually one more state. And actually I made then here a mistake, right? Because I want to write a else statement here. And this else statement makes not sense if I just copy this one. So how I can change this code that this makes sense? Instead of using an if and if all time from new, I can just write here else if, right? So now we change this little code, and let me copy this else as well here. Oops, this not. Let's copy this one here too. Very lazy, but it works in front of that. And why I'm doing this one is I write at the end a default one, and default is just an else. So which means if all this not was here, it was not found, then I write the message std cout not found, for example. Not found, but this one is just for the start that this one works. So I made here a solution which is bad, but it works for less elements. So how I can change actually this one to a better solution? When we think about, we had, for example, a while loop, a for loop, or a do while loop. So we should perhaps use something like that when we have an array. Normally when you see an array, all time the first thing what you think of should be a loop, because the loop is there just to go through an array, through all elements, and then you can take action. So here I stop, and in the next video I will change this if statements to a better solution, because this if is working, but I want a while loop or a for loop, because like I said, arrays should, when you see an array, just use a loop. It's most time one of the best solutions. Not this one where this solution works only because we have here really 4 elements. If we have here 1000 elements, this solution would not work. Then after another hour, I would still be here and typing, okay, I'm on slot 994. Now I need 6 more, and so on. That makes no sense. So, like all time, if you have any questions, write it in the comments. If you have any complaints, write it also in the comments. And with that said, I hope that you made something better than me, and good luck, and see you in the next video. Bye.